everyone. Welcome to this episode of our podcast. We are joined today by Noom. Noom is the Director of Global Trust Operations APAC for Airbnb. And I'm directly going to hand this over to her to actually share with us her corporate career journey. So over to you, Noom.
I like to think of myself as a compassionate change leader. I look at my career as an intersection between operations management and brand management. I started off in the late 1990s in consulting, business first, and then after my MBA, then I pivot to do brand management. So I had a few brand management roles in consumer marketing. Accidentally, but it became a very good transition in my career to customer operations role at Google. And I really grow to like operations management. I like the process and I like the people, more specifically part of it. Close to 6 years ago, I joined Airbnb, which I think is a perfect intersection between where my earlier days of brand management lied, as well as the operation management. So I did a couple of roles in community support operations, and then recently transitioned to the trust role.
So many pivots, right? Like you said, you pivoted from in your first role, and then you pivoted again in terms of industry. So, when you started your career, did you think that this is where you'll end up?
No, I don't think so. I realized I didn't have much courage back then. I did my master in the US, spent 2 years there, and what was common for international students back then studying MBA in the US is majority of my international classmates wanted to find a job in the US. I realized at that time I didn't feel like I had a courage, or I was worried about what it was like working in an environment where I could be a minority. Because I grew up in a very harmonious environment, I didn't quite fully understand or grasp the concept of a true diversity until I actually exposed to the world outside of my home country. And the idea of working in an environment where I demographically or psychologically, I might feel a little bit like an outsider in some occasions. What would that feel like? But interestingly, even after I transitioned back to Thailand after my MBA, there's a bit of that lingering thought about what it would be like to pursue international career. One thing led to another, and I landed myself in Singapore, and in a way fulfilled my itch back then about being an international, working in an international career where I might be a minority.
Yeah, what helped you build that courage?
I don't think it came that naturally. I think there's a part of me that I would consider myself bold, but there's a part of me that I consider myself rather conform and conservative in certain extents. And in the earlier days, maybe the confidence is not that high, but after some years and after some track record and a sense of a clarity a bit about what I'm doing well and what I'm doing less well, what could be my strength, and I continue to invest and ride on that. And over time, of course, combined with some good support from the network and people around me and good soul searching, great coach, a lot of self-discovery and inquiry. Over time, that started to build up to be a foundation of confidence, and then courage can be built upon that.
Yeah. I love it. I think, you spoke about two things that are very close to my heart. One is reflection, like you said, soul searching or discovery. I'd love to hear how, what you did for that. And then I definitely want to talk about the support that you mentioned. So tell me more about the self-reflection piece of your journey.
I have always been a reflective kid growing up. I like a little bit of inner self, inward looking activities. I'm also a poet, so I like reflect and,
Nice.
Writing and find my own thought and clarity of thought in that own way. So I think that carried through in my workspace as well. When things happen, I tend to reflect and I tend to take time to respond. Sometimes I do it well than other, but I usually take times to digest and decide and internalize. and trying to look at things from a different perspective. I also find that having a coach is helpful because it's also a process of facilitate the inner self-understanding.
Right.
So that's also another great help.
Yeah.
And there's some certain discovery that I can do by myself, but there's certain discovery that it could be a blind spot, or I couldn't see it without some support from other individual to facilitate.
Yeah, I think that's such a great segue into my second part that I wanted to talk to you about, right? Which is the support that you got. So it looks like you've had great coaches who helped you reflect well in your journey. Where else did you think you got support from in this journey?
I grew up in a family upbringing that are generally quite supportive of my choice.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt there's a confidence being placed in me in that sense. So I felt I'm empowered to a certain extent to choose my own path.
Right.
So that's one. The second is in the earlier days of my career, I had an opportunity to work with the boss who I felt like had more confidence in me, more than I had confidence in myself back then. So, and somebody to believe in me more than I actually believe in myself back then was a very powerful experience in the work setting. So that helped. Later on in my career, then I started to be more intentional in building the network. And I want to acknowledge and admit that I don't think that process come that naturally or organically at the beginning, but it did come with some level of realization and effort, and for me to start to see the benefit, and for me to start to feel that my investment in this is also genuine, like very sincere and all that. I think my experience in Google also helped, surrounded by like-minded person. There's a more support group for women leaders. There's more program that I can be part of. And as part of that, that is more intentionality in having that support group.
My God, there's just so many things that you just said that really resonate with me, right? I think the first question is going to be about the corporate support that you got, and you mentioned organizations that support women leadership. Can you tell me a little bit more about what shifts you saw because of that support in your career?
Oh, okay. Yeah. I think the first one is executive coaching, right? I think it's actually shifted me a lot. By that time, I was a senior leader, a senior manager running a pretty decent size operations. And I'm going through some transition in the portfolio, getting more moving locations, getting more expanded portfolio. And I felt that I need to flex my leadership approach. Yet by that time, I have already learned and participated in multiple leadership training. But at times when I'm trying to put it into real life, sometimes things are not flowing through, so smoothly in what I was expected. So sometimes what it occurs to me is that sometimes what we know may or may not translate in the result right away, right? So there's something that need to go in that level of translation about the know-how to the ability to make the actual impact. And I think when executive coaching comes, it's a lot of self-inquiry and discovery. So I enjoy the process of reflection, the process of thinking through with clarity. That's when different set of results started to emerge. And the speed and the implementation of what I need to transform the team and bringing the team forward. It just create more dimension of layers of awareness and ability to pivot.
My other question was around networking. And I feel that a lot of times it's not very easy or natural for people to network, and network also gets a bad rap sometimes, right? So I'd love to hear, how did you become more comfortable with the idea of meeting people and getting to build your network?
The number one thing is that it has to anchor well with my own personal value, right? So I don't feel a conflict when I was reaching out or when I was reciprocal in some way. And I think I'm also aware about what works and what doesn't work for me. Like I'm an introvert in nature. I'm more on the introvert side, so I gain a lot of energy by myself. But I'm also sociable enough to 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 make connection, but maybe not. I wouldn't classify myself in a big way that I want to. I'm super comfortable attending the meeting or a party when I don't know anyone. That's why it does take its time, and I need to just make sure that it's at the right pace for me. And the easiest thing for me to resonate with is that if there's a common interest or common passion in that group of network, then it make it easier. It make it easier to feel that I'm part of the community. That's one. The second thing is that I also felt that it need to be a reciprocal type of relationships. So, and this take investment because it's like a two-way. So I always feel like in a way, I'm intentional but also cautious about my network in a sense that I don't feel that I need a large set of network, right? But I think I just need a feel to belong to something. I felt that I have a circle of reliable peer group that I can lean on. It is probably good for me. So just also define what that looks like for me. And it did take a little bit of time for me to kind of come to term and feel at peace with this intentionality.
Yeah, I think, you and I have worked at Google together, and you're one of the few people I know who makes an effort to also keep in touch with people. Like, in terms of saying, remembering what we spoke last time, or just checking in with me on, how's your daughter doing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. When you were traversing through this career journey of yours, were there any surprises, surprises in terms of, oh, I didn't expect this to happen, or I didn't expect this person to provide any support?
Probably not the support itself, but I would say it's a twist and turn in my career because. But it turned out to be a positive one.
Okay.
When I joined Google, I accepted the job and I took some weeks off, as a break in between jobs. And during those break time, I received a call from a hiring manager informing me that my role has changed to the role that I thought I would be coming in doing. Would change into something else, and I would be running the operations, and I'd be starting a community like the support team for the role. And I didn't quite understand what that means. It's a short phone call. I was asking what would be my KPI, how do we measure the success for the role, but I accepted the challenge regardless. So, and in a way, I didn't have prior experience doing that particular job that the role pivot into. But the hiring manager told me that he felt that I have a good enough grip of people management experience, and he felt that I could be the one who can actually starting this team. But I think it turned out to be a good one. So I think what I'm getting from that opportunity is sometimes the organization, maybe it's a business need that pivot into that direction, or maybe it's also say something about the willingness of the organization to give it a shot. Maybe during the hyper growth stage, there's a willingness to take a chance, right? And I thought that was it was a good one because it turned out that I grew to like the job, and I was able to produce some result and make an impact on the job that I actually didn't know how to do before. So it's a good outcome. The other thing that surprised me, I think, back to your question about what maybe the level of support that I might not imagine entirely that I would get is like the ability to be part of to lead the global operation out of Singapore. And I think maybe that speaks to you as well, right? And with some level of work, of course, to enable that, but also there's enough trust within the company to actually entrust that this can be done.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you manage to find balance, Noam? I mean, you have other interests. I know you love dancing. You have, your ikebana, I think it is. And then you said you write poetry, which I just learned today. So, and you have this global role, which is not very easy to do out of Singapore, right? So, how do you find that balance of work and life?
Yeah, I think this is a good thing, right? It's like, to me, it's like work-life integration rather than work-life balance. Yes, I have other interests, but work is also a big component. There was a level of effort that I need to adjust to make it work for the business, make it work for the team that I serve,
Right.
and also make it work for myself. But I think a few key principles. The first one is I need to know what energizes me outside of work and how do I protect my time. The second is how do I manage my own personal well-being if I need to make certain level of adjustment to make it work.
Yeah.
To make it work so that I can accommodate certain time zone, but also make sure that I myself get enough rest. And the third is how do I make sure that I am clear about what I can and what I cannot do. So it's almost like work hard, play hard mentality. And if I need to draw the line more firmly and more bluntly, then I would as well.
I think that the last part that you just spoke of, like drawing boundaries, is really hard to do. It's not very easy to say no all the time, especially when you're in a global role. You're like, okay, I can manage this, or sometimes it is a part of your purview, and if you don't know how to say no, it becomes very difficult to balance, right? So have you ever had that dilemma? How do you then convince yourself that it's okay?
Yeah, and so I still deal with that dilemma too. Sometimes there's a bit of like a spectrum, right? Sometimes I felt I give in a little bit more, and sometimes I felt I put the thing more firmly onto certain things. In fact, just yesterday I made a request to move the meeting, to move out certain meeting that I cannot participate because it was like at 2:30 a.m. in my local time. And I thought I have told them before that it's okay. I would watch the recording later.
Right.
And I have given the team the green light to do that because there was like another 25 people in the call and I'm the only one here. And then I started to realize, of course, there's more realization as I understand more of the business. And I realized that I actually want to be part of that conversation. But then since I already told them that, I'll take the recording this time, but then it's almost like I'm changing my mind as I know more about the landscape. But I made a request anyway, like, so, and then the person kind of like, but we're going to have to reschedule another 23 people. And I was like, do it.
Do
it. Because I want to be part of that conversation.
Yeah. And I think what I'm hearing you say is that it's okay to change your mind about these things, especially where you need to be part of the conversation, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're almost going to wrap up. So I'm going to ask you last two questions. The first one is, what would you tell your younger self, like the one who started working in Accenture? I think that's where you started.
Yeah.
What would you tell your younger self today if you had to give them a piece of advice on career and growth?
I would say that I would like to tell my younger self to seek help, to be, and I felt I'm completely okay to seek help now, but I felt maybe that come with maturity and some level of experience, and I feel firm and feel strong enough to seek some help. But when I was in the earlier days and still felt like I was trying to find my feet, trying to prove myself, the process of seeking help is a little bit more delicate. And I didn't feel like I was a right balance. What if I make myself appear too weak, or too vulnerable, or too dependent, right? So there's a lot more thought that all the things that I didn't even consider right today. I would just go and ask for help. So that would be one. The second, I would say be bold. a bit, because even the word bold is something that take me some time to also resonate with, because of my personality, my stylistically, it was not I was not someone who may come across that, you know with that personality from the onset, but it's something I slowly build the comfort
Yeah.
with around, right? And I think it's such an important part of the leadership aspect. How can we make a decision? How can we be bold yet still empathetic and compassionate? And I think in my younger self, I maybe overlook a little bit of this personality trait.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. I think that definitely resonates with me as well. And being bold, I think, being assertive. Yeah, it's so important, and yet definitely overlooked. Or like you said, it comes with age. You realize after, when you look back on your career journey, you realize that I could have been more assertive then, and I was not. So yeah. And my final question, Noom, is tell me, how do you define success in career, or just define success overall, right?
Yeah, I think I link back again for my own value, right? I have a few value, but I would say the top two would be learning and growth is one, and the second is harmony. So when I anchor back on my own value, then the success for me would be, how do I realize my fullest potential? So that is anchor on the learning and the growth aspect of it. But the second part come with, how do I realize my fullest potential to actually make an impact
Yeah.
for people around me? So that would be maybe the definition of the success for me today, and it expand across work and also area outside of my work as well.
Lovely, lovely. No, thank you. I think for me, I loved the conversation we had. That part of the conversation we had on networking, on how you need to network with a genuine intention. Like, and I really love that. And I think there was something that you said about self discovery, which was fantastic. Which is how you need to spend time to understand yourself really well, and at that point, having a coach or a mentor really helps. To further that journey. So those are my takeaways today. So thank you very much for speaking to us.
Thank you very much. And you're contributing to my journey as well. So I want to say that big thank you back to you.
Thank you, Noom. Thank you.